Pecha 237, Starscream's Toys 2. So I did go back to what I was doing last week, try and tighten up the illustration. I'm pretty happy with how it's going. One could always do more, but I get a good sense of I'm moving in the right direction with this. So this is where we were last week. A core part of this is not just to draw Transformers and make them look like their 3D forms are coherent and solid, but there needs to be a certain level of complexity in the entire composition of this image. That's kind of what the point is. It's not really just about Starscream, it's about the stuff going on behind him. What's going on behind him? Well, it's Megatron and Soundwave doing something. The one thing I haven't actually solidified in this is Starscream is clearly playing with his toys, making a joke, and Megatron is hearing this joke and he's like, what the fuck's going on? I haven't actually clarified what the joke is, but as I'm drawing Megatron, I just want him to be like how I've approached Starscream. He's in his midriff, he has like these kind of bits and bobs, and what I try to do is be accurate to the G1 cartoon while also rendering it in a way that looks a little bit cooler by angling the side grill to make it look like it's some kind of air infiltration system. And then when I was doing his arms, I decided to add some completely superfluous detailing just to break up the straight lines. I'm kind of realizing that the best way to go about drawing Transformers is to just break up the lines as much as possible. And while I was trying to reference Soundwave's head, using G1 cartoon footage, Generation 1, it's so difficult to actually make out from some of these grainy images I'm getting off of Photoshop, off of Google, what I'm looking with. But I found a comfortable middle ground, got what I feel is a good likeness, and then I moved on to a shoulder-mounted cannon. And I want it to look 3D, I want it to look like it's solid, but I also don't want to go crazy with the vector tool. So I found like I struck a good, sensible balance when working on everything, with trying to keep line work as clean as possible without it being a job in and of itself. I'm really here to create forms. This is still ultimately a sketch, even if it's going to be tight by my standards. And once I've finished with Soundwave, I started tentatively adding in background elements, even though Megatron and Soundwave are background elements. I mean, an actual background. I want them to be in the Decepticon base. There's some kind of big view screen thing behind them, and there's some kind of language and blueprints or something on it. Nothing especially eye-catching, but not utterly superfluous. And then on the left, the view screen thing has to be in some kind of giant furniture. So what I'm trying to do is just give the impression that something's going on by adding loads of shapes that make it look like they all add up to some kind of big weird cartoon 90s cartoon style supercomputer thing. And while I was doing this, I was copying and pasting certain elements. Well, no, actually, only the square buttons there in the middle. Which reminds me, working digitally, there are a lot of ways to extract a lot of value from little work, and I don't do that nearly enough. After that, I added some kind of cables and cable ties around the back to make the place look disheveled. Backgrounds are an excellent opportunity to tell a narrative that isn't immediately picked up on. So that's really been, I think, the highlight of the week. And then I kind of was ignoring Starscream's chest to the point I'd forgotten. And then, of course, I had to get on with it. And again, in trying to break up the lines, I've added lines where there really doesn't need to be any. And then, to further increase breaking up the lines, I kind of made the decision to add battle damage. Not too much to Starscream and a little bit to Megatron. Just so they look like maybe they have been fighting a million-year war, but they get most of the big stuff fixed. So taking stock of where I am at this point, I think I like everything with Starscream's head going up. I think the He-Man toys are great, but those hands Or, I'm not big on hands, but they look like they could do with some love, so I kind of decided, yeah, let's do something. The cartoon character Transformers have pretty simplistic hands. They're almost equatable to Mickey Mouse hands. So I was just kind of trying to solidify forms. They've got like circles around their fingers that denote where they bend. I wasn't even using these things in that way. And once I did one hand, I was kind of obligated to do the other one. Funny how that works. And this is the kind of shovel work that really makes me not want to put more work in general. But discipline is important too. So I'm glad I got both of those done. I think it tightens up the composition in general. It's not like I'm going to magically pull the greatest hands I've ever drawn out of my ass, especially when I don't... hands are really as complicated as the entire body combined, and these are super robot hands. But whatever. I think it's looking pretty good. I'm going to add color next week. Maybe do something even more ridiculous, but I doubt it. And my companion through the week has been The New Adventures of He-Man. I'm still watching this ridiculously awful 90s cartoon show. It's so bad it's good. I think it strikes the mark perfectly. The voice actors are camp. It shows ridiculous. And it brings me to my sad clown of the week, because Skeletor, you can set your watch to it. He will lose in 20 minutes or less because that's his fucking job. It's more entertaining to watch the show thinking that Skeletor is intentionally trying to lose, because he has the most elaborate schemes and he has the most incredible science at his disposal. He's like 1970s Doctor Doom. The idea that he could consistently lose is unfathomable, especially since there's 4 episodes in the show where he actually wins and then somehow still loses in the 5th. He got a redesign from the first couple of episodes where he used to look like he does in this top right hand image. He had a big pink cape and he was ridiculous, but he was awesome and he was very theatrical and he taught Batman everything he knew. And then he got redesigned and was dangerous for a few episodes. And now about 30 episodes in, Skeletor has become a parody of himself. You'll see in the middle there's a version of Skeletor where he's wearing a cowboy hat. This happens. This kind of stuff happens all the time. I couldn't find the picture of him wearing a party hat. Google just wouldn't play ball with that. It is too ridiculous. And in the very first episode of the entire show, where both him and He-Man get transported to the future, where they actually, fight, all Skeletor had to do to win, by default, was simply stay at home. He-Man would have gone to the future, Skeletor would have stayed in the present, and he would have been unopposed. I am absolutely 100% sure it's not just because, as a 90s cartoon villain, he is obligated to lose. I think it's his personal preference, and that's why he's the sad clown of the week. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 237. You can expect to see more Starscream next week.